Hi guys, so this is a part 2 to the Spotify reaction. This one is a little bit more complete with stats, and I will be reacting to some of the new information I've gotten about how Spotify divides its revenue. And this is more to do with how Spotify has moved from essentially a music-based platform into trying to expand into podcasts and the like. And since pretty much the Joe Rogan days, where 2 or 3 years ago they signed Joe Rogan for, I believe it was $100 million deal, they've been trying different celebrities to boost their status in the podcast space. They've attempted various things like having Prince Harry and his wife and I believe Kardashians. And so that comprises, if I'm not mistaken, about 10% of their revenue. Coupling that in with sort of the economy and inflation and everything, this is a large cutback on what they're able to pay their artists. Having said that, Spotify is being very unfair to their lower tier artists and lower tier users, because I understand that a lot of these people are generating tons and tons of revenue, but in order to run a platform that's trying to grow and incite people to use, you have to kind of have a fair share of the dividends divided up. So I think it's just been a mistake from the get-go as far as what they've been doing, which I spoke in the earlier video. Also, I think the highest generating acts will come to the forefront and be the most promoted and the most rewarded. But again, I think when you become the main distributor, the main source of people's music listening, you do have a certain kind of responsibility. And I think there is a way to make it financially manageable and to create profit. I just think that it all depends on what your definition of profit is. Now, I know Spotify employs about 10,000 employees, and I know inflation hits them as well, and the economy and everything. But I'm wondering how much of the money is allocated towards the top CEOs and all that. And I understand that they do have a bit of a gripe with what they call noise music, which is AI generated or spammy type content, which is put on Spotify in order to rack up streams and create money. If you want to get rid of that, you also have to reward the legit creators and not group them all in the same category, right? Like the up and coming artists that are struggling are not the same as the spamming bots that are taking up the space with the noise content. So aside from the entire sort of structure being profit based and all that, there is a way to be fair to the smaller content creators and artists. And that goes, as I said in my previous video, that goes for all platforms. I would include YouTube on that, everything. I feel like even with YouTube, for example, just to sideline a little bit, it was a lot easier on YouTube to get monetized years ago. And even big vloggers, creators on YouTube have spoken about this. Whatever you may think of them, for example, like a Jake Paul, he would comment on the fact that YouTube just isn't what he's about anymore, as far as them making it even harder on even acts as big as that to generate revenue, to do what they were doing beforehand. So it's interesting. I think it all sort of ties into the same umbrella, which is as these platforms grow bigger and as they monopolize more and more in terms of having control over, say, music, or YouTube is the new television, if you will, you have them going the cliche way of only caring about that high-end profit and ignoring just so much genius and so much beautiful art and so much amazing creative stuff that's not given the opportunity to shine. And I also want to say, because I was thinking about this, I understand that I'm sure some people's rebuttal will be artists can generate revenue different ways. They can sell merchandise, they can do this, they can do that. Yes, for sure. It's just very hard to be a smaller artist and to be able to, have the machine of the merchandise, the touring, the what have you. It's very, very difficult for small artists to be able to generate that kind of revenue, to even be able to do those things in order to be able to live off of them. It seems almost like a catch-22, like going in circles, like whatever kind of thing you come up with in order to monetize, in order to make money, has to be funneled back into creating the art. And now, don't get me wrong, there are ways of creating the art in-house, and certain things I wanted to address in the previous video as well. Like, it's never been easier in order to create content. You can do it from your phone, you can do it from anything. Your laptop is a studio when it comes to music or anything like that. Technology is there. Technology is amazing, but I feel like the gatekeepers in this economy and this structure are the problem. On the one hand, they provide a service, which is good in terms of, you get exposure, you get put out there, but the way it's ran and the way it plays God in a way is wrong. And I understand that profits come first, but I think we've hit like an all-time high of taking it too far with that stuff. And it is, once again, in my opinion, a matter of, do we want to see a renaissance in art? Do we want to see a lot better quality art? Because you got to understand, artists and creators, we're all copying each other to a degree, right? We're all trying to figure out what works, what's in, and the odd, rare artists will always be in their own lane. But those types tend to not generate a lot of money, and unfortunately, and as historically it goes, the Van Goghs and such, you have to make money in the society. So people do follow trends and they do follow the status quo to a degree. So it's difficult to, on the one hand, want good content, good art, good creativity, but on the other to support these established corporations and just feel like they're not doing what they could be doing. I think maybe there's a case for something which would be a little radical, but creating these companies as public utilities where nobody really owns them, right? They're shared by the communities and the overall community, I should say. Of course, that's a topic for a different time, but it seems if we keep going in this direction that we're just going to lose out on a lot of beautiful art. I don't want to be negative. There is still a ton of good music out there. It's just you have to search a lot more for it, and you have to hope that these people can continue financing it in order to create it. I've always been a fan of the zeitgeist, the wave that comes out of certain times. And in the past, that's helped to accelerate art and certain artists and just creativity. It's helped to nurture and foster certain waves, right? Like the new wave, if you will. Whereas today, I feel like we're kind of stagnant in that. And I would say all, if not a lot of that is due to the structure of things. And it always harkens back to the economy. Again, it's like chicken or egg, which came first, right? So is it the economy influencing everything? I believe it is. Or is it just like its own thing where, a subculture pops up and then that kind of influences the other artists to do the same thing. But I would say it's 100% at the root coming from things like this where you create a certain incentive structure and then you see the results. So I just wanted to add a little bit more information regarding what I was speaking about with Spotify and just a little bit more on my own thoughts on entire ethos of these corporations and then how it all affects the artist and the listener. I know for the listener it's a lot more blasé. It's a little bit, the listener just wants to hear good music and whatever, see their favorite artist. I get that. So it's not really their concern, but it's all synergistic. It all ties into one another. And I believe that if we want to see more art, better art, things have to change and it has to be a grassroots kind of change. Will we get there? I don't know. Until then, we can only do what we can do. So that's all for now. Thank you for listening.